それはおごりだと言ったはずだ。
おい、君らどこまで行くんや?
Well, if it isn't Komaeda from the hit game Shooty Refuty 2 Goodbye Club Penguin, sequel to the hit game Dang Daniel Rampa 1. Aside from being our first non-Type Moon crossover character, Dantes has a fairly unusual loadout, so let's start there. His first skill is Iron Determination. This one's a 3-piece buff with Clutch Invuln Pierce and a substantial attack increase combined with 3 turns of debuff resistance. The attack buff usually takes precedence and you pop it on an NP turn or a Brave Chain. Invuln Pierce adds some flexibility. That's nice. Skill 2 is Golden Rule. This gives 3 turns of substantially higher NP gain. Despite its plainness, Golden Rule is critical for some of Edmond's more devious applications, so budget materials accordingly. I'll get into the details a bit later. Skill the third, we have Wisdom of Crisis. This one's another 3-piece that gives a large number of stars, cleanses debuffs, and reduces an enemy's meter by 1. There's a lot of utility here, and while the stars are nice, the other 2 effects give Dantes room to operate in high difficulty challenge quests. Charge reduction is especially useful since Edmond has no defensive cooldowns to negate enemy NPs. Komaeda's Noble Phantasm is Chateau... I'm trying really hard not to say Dilf. Here's the current stats, but I'm going to be talking about the upgraded version since it's got some special properties that you should account for in your future proofing. So we've got AoE damage, defense reduction and curse and overcharge, and a curse amp. The power and utility tied to this NP makes it a very powerful asset to lean on. While the curse damage isn't relevant in most encounters, it comes in handy from time to time. Some enemies like to hide the last 1000 health of a break bar behind some pretty obnoxious evasion spam. Taking all this into account, Dantes can rapidly ramp up to a big damage turn, but he has the same problem as a lot of other quick characters. He loses momentum. Because he has no defensive cooldowns, this puts you on a timer, and in a situation where you lack the power for a strong follow-up turn, that's a problem. In other words, Dantes has an interesting kit, but it's incomplete for an attacker. Our next few teams will try to fix that. You walk into a restaurant for a hot date. You get to your table and sitting there are Edmond Dantes and Hans Christian Andersen. What do? Dantes is a weirdly annoying servant to build teams around, but I found a few odd synergies you might be able to exploit. First off, we have Tamalancer, who gives male star gen, a 5-turn curse, and a personal crit amp. The problem is that Tammy's not really in the business of keeping her dates alive, so when things get rough, she'll be the last one left. Secondly, there's Skog. Like Tamalancer, she has crit damage in a 2Q2B deck to work with Dantes. She also has a targeted quick buff, making her a weirdly expensive budget Scotty. You just fish for a good hand, commit the buff to whoever gets it, and pray your target dies in 1 turn. Behind door number 3 is Lancer Purgatorio. This guy has a 3Q deck, which adds more consistency than other Lancers. He's got Surehit, a star gen buff, an NP seal to keep Dantes alive, and a Noble Phantasm that makes him hulk up like crazy. While Dantes starts strong and gets weaker during a fight, Lancer Purgatorio operates in reverse. This helps them shore up each other's weaknesses, and even if Dantes dies, you have a strong finisher in play. He's a 3-star and he gets introduced in Epic of Remnant's Shimosa chapter, so leveling him won't be the hardest thing. Finally, there's Danzo Kato. She has a targeted evasion and a targeted invuln, both of which come with star gen buffs. The issue with her is that she's not a great attacker. Running her as a second threat gives you survivability, but it also increases your time to kill, thus making you lean on that survivability. As you can see, these 2 threat comps are kinda jank, so let's see how Dantes does when he gets top billing. Yeah, I know, double waiver. But it's different this time, I swear. Dantes has a curse amp, Waver's got a curse on his NP. Dantes has meter reduction, Waver's got that too. The idea is that you never let your enemy NP ever, while you stack damage over time on them. It's a real shame Dantes doesn't have his upgrade on the North American server. This would be great for the crab battle. Obviously, the applications of curse stacking are fairly narrow, but they have come up before and they could come up again, so keep it in mind. Then again, it's not like double waiver is exactly a niche combo. It gives Dantes a free NP and a shitload of stats, so, it'll do fine for normal content. But to close out this whole curse idea, if you're a weird clown fucker, you can always go with a pair of Mephistopheli instead. He's got 2 curses. What a great idea. Tell me how that goes. And here we are. Double Scotty. How do you fix Dantes? This is the answer. Scotty gives Dantes pretty much everything he lacks. A quick buff on demand NPs, and even evasion. She also enables consecutive NPs, which is straight up ridiculous. With 3 targets in Golden Rule, your NP can hit a 50% refund, and each Scotty can give the other half to keep the combo going. You'll find this to be a recurring trend with quick characters. Jack aside, they tend to suffer from the inherent weaknesses of their card type, whether it's the lack of good NP generation, follow-up damage, or general consistency. Scotty's the magic pill that takes all these respectable but otherwise B or C tier characters and makes them into celebrities. For Dantes in particular, you have the option of attempting a 3-turn clear with a single attacker. This lets you treat him like a less vulnerable Lancelot. That said, Game Press brings up something interesting. The way hits are distributed on his NP impacts his looping potential to a degree that increasing his NP level can make a substantial difference. I have no personal experience with this, but if you're predisposed towards Dantes, then you can pull for extra copies and see a tangible benefit. Finally, let's revisit the curse stacking idea. Suffice it to say, if you're NPing 3 or 4 turns in a row, your target's going to take a lot of extra damage from the accumulated curses and curse amps. Let's say you fight a boss and 2 beefy enemies. Dantes might not kill the boss, but in taking out the trash mobs, he can seriously fuck up the boss while he does it. Double Scotty's one hell of a drug, but we're not done yet. Avengers have a passive called, curiously enough, Avenger. It has 2 effects, one of which reduces everyone else's debuff resistance. So I got to thinking, how bad can it get? Well, let's start things off with our victim, Blackbeard. While he gets 10% from his passive, you can reduce his resistance by 50% using Pirate's Glory. And who's that next to him? Why, it's Mysterious Hero K! Wait, what's he doing? Oh no! He's using Affection of the Holy Grail. That's another minus 20. Oh, hold on, we have a substitution. Carrie's out and Clifford is in. He and Dantes both give minus 10. Angra works too, but I'm gonna be real with you. Dantes and Clifford, both easier pulls. To add a bit of spice, let's give Blackbeard Howl at the Moon. You've got a few from Nerofest, I'm sure. This tanks his debuff resistance by another 20%. Adding all this up, we end up with a grand total of negative 100%. Do you know what happens at negative 100% debuff resistance? You're not playing FGO anymore. You're in one of those Simon Jutsu anime. Tomakat's witchcraft might actually work for once. Let's bury this monstrosity and move on to craft essences. K-Scope and Black Grail are your standard picks, and these will help you milk your NPs for all they're worth, whether in quantity or quality. App Media recommends Someday in Summer, which gives a 3-piece buff including quick, NP damage, and starting charge. This one's free if you play the Seraph event, which we'll be getting later this year. For my part, I'll recommend Dumplings over Flowers, which has stronger quick and NP damage buffs in exchange for lacking starting charge. Talk of the Hot Sands is another high-value craft essence, and it helps Dantes actually use his own stars. It's got crit damage to boot. Finally, there's Trick or Treatment, which gives crit damage and NP gain. Side effects may include a Raging Hard-On. Right now, Dantes is a diamond in the rough, but his future prospects look pretty good. Really, the only bad part about having him is that you're effectively forced to roll for Scotty when she comes along. Value-wise, that's a good investment, but I'd imagine a fair number of you'd resent having your arm twisted. Well, that's the price of power. In exchange, you get a near-universal attacker with enough utility to make him viable in challenge quests. That's pretty impressive for a guy who spent years playing second fiddle to Jolter. That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this, by all means like, subscribe, and watch me on Twitch. I stream every weekend, and this time I'll be hitting up the Prison Tower event. See you there.